How's it going, everybody? I am Josh. My amateur radio call sign is KI6NAZ. We are continuing along the technician question pool. These videos are broken up by sub-elements, and there are 10 sub-elements in the technician license test. You should go to hamstudy.org and take practice tests. When you take practice tests, it will tell you the sub-elements you're not doing so great at. You can watch these videos after that to get a little bit of extra help in learning this information before you go take your amateur radio license test. And another congratulations to you for showing interest in amateur radio. It is a wonderful hobby that can be fun for your entire life. There's so much depth to it. So congratulations on taking the first step into this great community. We are continuing with sub-element 8. This is on signals and emissions. This is one of those sub-elements where you can pick up this information really quickly if you have access to some radio equipment, particularly receivers like web SDRs, which are available for free. Just Google web SDR or Kiwi SDR, all one word, and you can quickly come up to speed on some of this technology really quickly. But let's start it off with section alpha. This is question alpha 01. Which of the following is a form of amplitude modulation? And it is C, single sideband. You're going to hear that a lot. Single sideband is the primary voice mode of operation for high frequency radio work. You're going to hear a lot more of that in this subsection. Alpha 02. What type of modulation is commonly used for VHF packet radio transmissions? And packet radio is similar to internet packets that we use today, but we use them over the air. And we use FM or PM. Alpha 03. Which type of voice mode is often used for long distance weak signal contacts on VHF and the UHF bands? That is C, single sideband. It is abbreviated here as SSB. That is how you will often see it. Alpha 04. Which type of modulation is commonly used for VHF and UHF voice repeaters? And that is going to be D, FM, or PM. Alpha 05. Which of the following types of signals has the narrowest bandwidth? Now, everything, the example, I normally only give you the correct answer. By the way, the correct answer is CCW, which stands for continuous wave. Continuous wave is the mode of operation we use to transmit Morse code. All the other options are voice options. The thing to commit to your brain here is my voice from an audio standpoint is much more complex in the nuances of tones and volumes and blah, blah, blah that go into it than dits and daws. So we only need a very tiny little bandwidth to express a dit or a daw, versus voice needs a much wider space to give you this articulate sound that you're hearing over your speakers. Something to remember. Alpha 06. Which sideband is normally used for 10 meter HF, VHF, and UHF single sideband communications? And the answer to this is A, upper sideband. There are two sidebands, upper and lower sideband. We will hear about lower later, but upper sideband is the answer for higher frequencies, 10 meters, VHF, and UHF. Alpha 07. What is a characteristic of single sideband compared to FM? Again, frequency modulation. C, SSB signals have narrower bandwidth. That is true. Alpha 08. What is the appropriate bandwidth of a typical single sideband or SSB voice signal? The answer is B, 3 kilohertz. That's the transmit bandwidth size. Alpha 09. What is the approximate bandwidth of a VHF repeater FM voice signal? And that is C, between 10 and 15 kilohertz. So compare and contrast those. Pretty big difference in the size of that voice bandwidth going from single sideband to FM. FM being 10 to 15 kilohertz. Alpha 10. What is the appropriate bandwidth of AM fast scan television transmissions? It is C, about 6 megahertz. Pretty big. Alpha 11, what is the approximate bandwidth required to transmit a CW signal? So you've heard kilohertz, megahertz. What do you think CW is? Well, the answer is B, 150 hertz, a tiny bandwidth to be able to transmit CW effectively. That's why Morse code and CW, the mode that we use, is so valuable still in making very long distance contacts via ham radio, and you can use much less power to make that happen. Alpha 12, which of the following is a disadvantage of FM compared with single sideband? B, only one signal can be received at a time. I guess that's true. Capture effect? Yeah. Yes. Good. Okay. All right, that was section A. We're moving right into section B, amateur radio satellite operation, Doppler shift, basic orbits, operating protocols, etc., etc. Bravo 01, what telemetry information is typically transmitted by satellite beacons? It is C, health and status of the satellite. Telemetry is information that a satellite downlinks. It could be a number of things, but in this case, for amateur radio satellites, it's health and status of the satellite. Bravo 02, what is the impact of using excessive effective radiated power on a satellite uplink? B, blocking access by other users. You don't generally want to transmit more power than is needed for an amateur radio satellite contact. In fact, going too much power can do exactly what's happening here and eliminate other people from being able to use the satellite at the same time. This, of course, depends on the satellite. Maybe more on that later. Bravo 03. Which of the following are provided by satellite tracking programs? And the answer is D. All of these choices are correct. So let's read them. A, maps showing the real-time position of the satellite track over the Earth. B, the time, azimuth, and elevation of the start, maximum amplitude, and end of the pass. And C, the apparent frequency of the satellite transmission, including the effects of Doppler shift. I think there'll be more questions on Doppler, but just keep in mind that as something is further away from you, closest to you, and then going away from you, that effective frequency changes, and that change over time as things move is called the Doppler shift. B04, what mode of transmission is commonly used by amateur radio satellites? And it's D. All of these choices are correct. And the options are A, SSB for single sideband, B, FM for frequency modulation, and C, CW for continuous wave or Morse code, and data. There are every one of those satellites flying overhead somewhere right now. B05, what is a satellite beacon? It is D, a transmission from a satellite that contains status information. Just a beacon with some amount of info. Bravo 06, which of the following are inputs to a satellite tracking program? So this is B, the Keplerian elements, and the Keplers, as they're sometimes referred to, is pointing and tracking information as well as timing information. So we can use that for a number of things, but one of them primarily is accurate tracking of what we call passes, and that's when the satellite should be in view when comparing it from horizon to horizon. Bravo 07, what is Doppler shift in reference to satellite communications? And the answer is C, an observed change in signal frequency caused by relative motion between the satellites and Earth station. B, or Bravo 08, what is meant by the statement that a satellite is operating in the U-V mode? And it's B. The satellite uplink is in the 70 centimeter band, and the downlink is in the 2 meter band. So what are they saying there? So 70 centimeter is a part of the ultra high frequency space, and the 2 meter band is a part of the VHF, or very high frequency space. So the first character in the U-V or V-U indicates what the uplink frequency is, and the uplink frequency is our transmitting frequency to the satellite. The second character is the downlink frequency. Bravo 09, what causes spin fading of satellite signals? And it's B, rotation of the satellite and its antennas, because most amateur radio satellites are just little things that get chucked out into space and they tumble. Bravo 10, what is a LEO satellite? This is an acronym for D, a satellite in low Earth orbit, LEO. Bravo 11, who may receive telemetry from a space station? It is A, anyone, because how could they stop you? They can't really stop you. That's like some Gestapo type stuff. Bravo 12, which of the following is a way to determine whether your satellite uplink power is neither too low nor too high? It is C. Your signal strength on the downlink should be about the same as the beacon. So if you hear, this doesn't work with all satellites, right? Because some of them don't have a beacon transmission. But when trying to operate with other people on the air, if you hear them, by the way, you'll hear yourself. This is a bit in the weeds a little bit, but if you hear them at a much lower volume than you hear yourself, then you may be putting too much power into the satellite. So what's the important thing to remember here? Well, in a properly configured satellite radio station, you actually have what's called a duplex receiver, which you're probably listening to in your ears, and you can hear yourself on the actual downlink of the satellite. So when you transmit, there'll be a slight delay, and you can actually hear yourself coming back down. And if you're like expressively louder than everyone else, you may be putting more power into the bird than you probably should. All right, and that is section Bravo. Moving right into section C. Charlie 01, which of the following methods is used to locate sources of noise, interference, or jamming? C, a fantastic hobby within our hobby, radio direction finding. So much so that this has actually become a sport where people will run a foot race trying to track down transmitters. Charlie 02, which of these items would be useful for a hidden transmitter hunt? The answer is B, a directional antenna. If you have just an omnidirectional antenna, it's actually really difficult to determine where the signal's coming from because you're kind of hearing equally all over. But a directional antenna has nulls on the sides and a little bit less reception on the back. And you use that to point in the direction where the loudest signal can be received. Charlie 03, what operating activity involves contacting as many stations as possible during a specific period? And it is D, contesting, or radio sport or radio contesting. Charlie 04, which of the following is good procedure when contacting another station in a contest? It is C, send only the minimum information needed for proper identification and the contest exchange. Anything you send more than the required exchange for the contest is wasted time and effort if you're using your voice. So you can leave the please copy at home. Charlie 05, what is a grid locator? It is A, a letter number designator assigned to a geographic location. So it's literally like a worldwide grid. Everything's broken down into ever smaller grids that we use to kind of track where people are at geographically. Charlie 06, how is over-the-air access to IRLP nodes accomplished? And the answer is B, by using DTMF signals. Those are acronyms. IRLP is Internet Radio Linking Project, and DTMF is Dual Tone Multi-Frequency. Charlie 07, what is Voice over Internet Protocol? And there's a parentheses acronym of VoIP. It is D, a method of delivering voice communication over the internet using digital techniques. A lot of phones in corporate world use VoIP technologies. Charlie08, what is the Internet Radio Linking Project, IRLP? It is A technique to connect amateur radio systems, such as repeaters, via the internet using voice over internet protocol. Charlie09, which of the following protocols enables an amateur station to transmit through a repeater without using a radio to initiate the transmission? It is D, EchoLink. You generally use your phone, if you have a smartphone, for instance, Android or iOS, to achieve that kind of communication. Charlie 10, what is required before using the EchoLink system? C, you have to register your call sign and provide proof of license. That is a requirement because you literally get blasted out on repeaters when you use EchoLink. Charlie 11, what is an amateur radio station that connects other amateur radio stations to the internet? They're called gateways. There are multiple instances where gateways are used with different types of internet-connected or internet-relayed amateur radio communications. And the last section, section D, or Delta, this is Delta 01. Which of the following is a digital communication mode? D, all of these choices are correct, and you have A, packet radio, B, IEEE or IEEE 802.11, and C, FT8. I think that is one of the newer questions in the question pool. Delta 02, what is a talk group, and that's in quotes, on a DMR repeater? And it is B, a way for groups of users to share a channel at different times without hearing other users on the channel. That's what it does. Talk groups allow you to create kind of a semi-private, although not private, area that's, again, internet linked together in some cases, not always. And that can be fun because they can be geographic. They can be like the Ham Radio Crash Course. We have our own DMR Talk Group that you can access over the internet or via some repeaters. Delta 03, what kind of data can be transmitted by APRS? D, all of these choices are correct. A, GPS data. B, text messages. C, weather data. All those things you can do. Delta 04, what type of transmission is indicated by the term NTSC? And that is C, an analog fast scan color television signal. Delta 05, which of the following is an application of APRS, Automatic Packet Reporting System? A, providing real-time tactical digital communications in conjunction with a map showing their locations of stations. Certainly true. One of my favorite modes in all of amateur radio, APRS. Delta 06, what does the abbreviation PSK mean? And again, quotes. It is B, phase shift keying. Phase shift keying. Used in a lot of digital modes. Delta 07, which of the following describes DMR? A technique for time multiplexing two digital voice signals on a single 12.5 kilohertz repeater channel. Literally, we call them time codes, color codes, that kind of thing. Two discrete signals happening simultaneously on one repeater. Pretty cool that you can do that with digital modes. Delta 08, which of the following is included in packet radio transmissions? D, all of these choices are correct, which is A, a checksum that permits error detection. B, a header that contains the call sign of the station to which the information is being sent. And C, the automatic repeat request in case of an error. All that is in packet radio. And it's been around for a really long time. Delta 09, what is CW? And it is D, another name for a Morse code transmission. And the acronym, not in this answer, is continuous wave. Delta 10, which of the following operating activities is supported by digital mode software in the WSJTX software suite? And it's D, all of these choices are correct. A, Earth, Moon, Earth. B, weak signal propagation beacons. And C, meteor scatter. WSJTX is a suite of software. It's one software title that does multiple things, and these are different applications for that software. Moon bounce, as we call it, literally bouncing signals off the Earth. Weak signal propagation is used to test your antenna's transmission reception, how well it's getting out, how well your signal's getting out. And meteor scatter, like we talked about in a lot of the sub-elements ago, is literally bouncing RF off of meteors. So super, super cool, and it's all facilitated within one application, WSJ-T-X. Delta 11, what is an ARQ transmission system? ARQ being all capitals. C, an error correction method in which the receiving station detects errors and sends a request for retransmission. This is like an ACK-NAC kind of thing. I either heard you or I didn't hear you. Or I didn't hear you correctly. Delta 12, which of the following best describes an amateur radio mesh network? I think this is a new one as well. This is A, an amateur radio-based data network using commercial Wi-Fi equipment with modified firmware. If you would like to know more about mesh networking, I did a series of videos on something called ARDEN. It was Alpha Romeo Echo Delta November, which is the amateur radio emergency data network. And it does use off-the-shelf commercial equipment that has specialty software for amateur radio running on it. And we literally have, in a lot of geographic locations, a mesh network built with other hams that we can exchange data, even going so far as doing VoIP and video, all kinds of really cool stuff. And the last question of sub-element 8 is, what is FT8? And FT8 is B, a digital mode capable of low signal to noise operation. The best way to explain or think of FT8 is it is a digital mode where the audio is sent from your radio into the computer, and the computer's audio processing has more sensitive ears than we do. So FT8 can hear FT8 signals down into the noise well past what human beings can do. That allows for extremely long distance contacts over the digital mode when connected to your computer. So there you go. That was sub-element 8. We're about to wrap this whole show up. Thank you so much for watching. As always, keep doing those practice tests on hamstudy.org. And when you do enough of them, the tool will tell you which sub-elements you need a little bit more help on. And hopefully these videos will allow you to get a little bit more context. The playlist is in the description below. Just bring up whichever sub-element you're having problems with, or maybe just listen to them all, and hopefully it is helpful. I am Josh, KI6NAZ. I'm linking to the next sub-element, and we're going to keep on going down the list. Thanks so much for watching. 73.